afternoon and welcome to the 4th Indigenous Mental Wellness Town Hall presented by the Wsth Speaker Radio Network. We have another great show for you with our guests, Elder Pam Heavyhead, Kyron Potts, and Dr. Evan Adams discussing mental wellness and self-care. Hosting this session is Wsth Speaker Radio's Loa Bibi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you and welcome to all of our listeners on the Wsth Speaker Radio Network today and to all those who are joining us live on Facebook. I'll be your host for the next hour and a half. Today is Bell Let's Talk Day, a day where we talk about mental health and bring a big part of that is the stigma behind ending the stigma behind the mental illness. On today's town hall, we will talk about the stigma as well as the practice for self-care from an Indigenous perspective. If you have any questions today or comments, please leave them on the chat on the CFWE Facebook page where we are streaming live. And you can also send a message as well. So not only in the chat, but also in a message. Before I start today, I would like to acknowledge that I am joining today's discussion from the city of Calgary, which is the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which includes the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Stoney Nakoda Nations comprising of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina Nation. This territory is also home to the Métis Nation. While we meet today on a virtual platform, from coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations that call this land home. Today, I'm very honored to have the three guests that we have. We have Elder Pam Heavyhead, Dr. Evan Adams, and Kyron Potts. I've also offline, I offered virtual tobacco to our elder, Pam Heavyhead. And we also today, as I ask Pam to do the opening prayer, we want to acknowledge those children that are still being found. And yesterday with the announcement of Williams Lake, the 93 children, we know more than ever today's Bell Let's Talk Day is important and the prayers from our elders are important as they guide us. So I'll give the mic over to Elder Pam.
Okay, thank you. Hi. I already lit my smudge. I'm at my home on the Blood Reserve. I live here and I've been here for probably 50 years. I was born and raised at Muscatcheese. But, I offer you prayer as an elder. We don't just become elders because we are old. We become elders because our community says that we are, because they've been in the witness of our rites in ceremony, in duty to responsibility of taking care of traditional knowledge, sacred knowledge. And so it's from there that I offer prayer. Ay manto, ay mamo, tawi mamamo, gawi ma, dastamat na omya kasaman, and tataman na nanotske timat na kusiak, kemio sipintatuske winnan, kemio pik squatama kumiko, mitet uskayak, nitai sinimnanak, nitoa simsnanak, nusimnanak, noakuma gannanak, kiko e quatakitatsk. Pues gonna give me wheaty ghostic, give me mom to ne tamatic, cake sewat sumia, kakio, kesagito, give me wascoita tamak, kaki simuin, give me mati huintic into awesome sinanak, give me mom to ne tamatsku de nika, ke kaiwa distic, ke so ke motic, kaka me motic, pues gonna give me a sneak of matsunwa, pues gonna give me up mati hayakik. Ke miuka ke skimaya ki ke sito skoaya ki ka ki on toa simsnana ka ki o skaya pues kana wisto tenika ke miu sok suntik ke miu mohtai sotik ke miuka skita masotik ukagi smoinwa miu mat sonot miu mantene taman sewa son kaya son o ke sagita Kues minan taskinan kemi upsiske tamak. Kues kakio tahutsikam nihkue akmpi kemi upsiske tamak eukonna minan taskinan. Kues kemi waskoi tutamakan kitski kuekakia sunumakua ke teak. Kues kakke kemi waskoi tutamak. Ntoasim snana kutsi nusim nana. Uskae kutehnikan. Muistoa kakke kemi kaio artistike saagihtakik opmaat suinua. Kues kemi wapahtahkik kakkena kewa seaittahkata kusketsk ke sewaat suunsi kuistoa uitaisini moa uitsan wao kakio toasim suavussimua hutenikan. Timaginaunan se manto ke sunia ke meosikanutsin tatuskeunnan ke miupiks kuatama miupmaat suun. Kueskana ke miuitaya ke kakioskaya kantuhtahkik. Uma kapiks kuetaunutskani kueskana ke miuitsisua. Nikagis muinnan ke sunia ke tahutske miuhtinketskakio avassa kuskaya. Haya.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that and starting us off in a good way with a prayer today. I do want to just go through our panel and I'll talk a little bit about their bio and then we'll come back to each panelist and just do an introduction of themselves, some opening remarks, and then we'll go into some questions today. So at this time, I'll first introduce our elder Pam Heavyhead, who just gave us a wonderful opening prayer that I felt in my heart. Thank you very much. She is originally from Ermineskin Cree Nation and is married into the Blood Tribe and has been a member there for, as she said, over 50 years. She is definitely somebody who has worked her entire career supporting communities in different ways. I know she has worked with United Way. She's done a lot of teaching. She's worked in social work. She's also assisted with mental health and well-being. I know she is currently a ceremonialist as well and is sought in her retirement. I'm not sure if any elder really retires, but I do actually like that she is part of a community that we can now tap into, and our elders are very special. And I'll come back to her to say some opening remarks. I will introduce a little bit of our next guest as well. We have Dr. Evan Adams. Evan Tesla Adams is a Coast Salish physician, and he's from Tala Amen First Nation near Powell River. BC, and Dr. Evan Adams completed his medical doctorate from the University of Calgary and a residency in Aboriginal Family Practice Program in Vancouver. Dr. Adams has a Master's of Public Health from Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. He was the Deputy Provincial Health Officer for BC from 2012 to 2012 to 2014. He then served as the medical officer of the First Nations Health Authority from 2014 to 2020. And he's now on an exchange with the First Nations and Inuit Health Branch, Indigenous Services Canada, as the Deputy Medical Officer of Public Health. Then next, I would like to introduce, and we're going to interview today, Kyron Potts. And his pronouns are he, him, and he's a proud Two-Spirit Wsth man from the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation. Originally from Edmonton, he now makes his home in Vancouver, where he works as a youth advocate, public speaker, youth resource developer, content coordinator, fashion model, actor, and comedian. His creative projects allow him to use his platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitch to share his culture, his passions, and some laughs with others. His youth advocacy work centers around queer Indigenous issues, youth in care, mental health awareness, Two-Spirit and gender identity, and life promotion. So I'd like to thank all of our guests today being with us. I was actually saying to our group here that I'm very honored to have all three guests on Bell Let's Talk Day. These are definitely perfect guests for today's topic. I'd also like to acknowledge at this time that we do have a steering committee from Treaty 6, 7, and 8 that work with First Nations Inuit and Health Branch to bring the town halls to you today, as well as the Windspeaker Radio Network. So I'd like to thank them for their work in making today happen. And at this time, I'd like to go to Elder Pam. If you can give us some opening remarks, and I will give each guest 5 minutes. And if I can give you the mic again, Elder Pam.
Sorry, I turned my mic off. Thank you so much for asking me to be part of the group. You know, I think a long time ago, when I was working at the Red Cross, I took a 120-hour brutal training around violence and abuse prevention, child abuse, and it was a very important course. And I originally went there just for the orientation, so I could support my group in going to the program. When I got there, I realized, where do I sign up? I want to be part of this. And you know, when we talk about these things, the traumas, the hardship, the intergenerational traumas, all of that language around what has come around residential school. When I went to the orientation, I thought, this hits the nail on the head about why things are the way that they are. Excuse me. And in the years of university, or even the years of working at the Red Cross for 16 years, all of these things that came to light about how we've normalized the grief, the violence, and the whole, all the social issues, the legislation, the systemic racism, all of those things became normal, and it became a base of operation. And where did we belong as Nehiawak, and so being designated these survivor, well, we act like a survivor. When we are become victims of, then we behave and we respond as victims. But at the end of the day, it's always about um, taking our spirits home. And that, you know, my dad used to say that you can't know where you're going unless you know where you came from. And at some time in our lives, we all need that to take our spirit home, whatever that means, whatever that looks like for individuals, whether it's hearing your language, seeing your people, uh, reconnecting with your family, or even your landscape, and, sharing that joy. And I there were so many things that come to value our lives as human beings when we take our spirit home, and, in a true way, and what nourishes our spirits to be the real people that we say we are. Because, when you say Nitsitapi, what are you saying? You're the real people. When we say Nehioak, Aisinoak, we're from the earth, we're the original people. And, how do we value that? How do we move forward as grown-ups, as adults, in, good health and goodwill? And what do we take with us being adults in our values and our, mental health and well-being? Is that 5 minutes?
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you for that, and that's a great reminder for all of us. I will now go to Dr. Evan Adams, and I want to thank you again, and I'm honored to have you.
Thank you so much. And Elder Pam, it was so nice to hear you, and I was so trying hard to listen. I have 3 dogs here under my desk, though, and they were just playing around and being noisy, and I felt like such a grandma going, shh, shh, stop it, stop it. So I had to turn my camera off. And so I put them in another room now. Hopefully they won't disrupt us too much. So my name is Tlesla Evan Adams, and I'm calling in from Tla'amin Nation, which is about 160 kilometers from the city of Vancouver. I live in my home territory, and I work as a doctor and a little bit as an actor. And I'm so glad to be here today with you, Loa, and Elder Pam, and Kai Kai, my cousin over there. And I spend a lot of my time thinking about the health of Indigenous people. I feel really lucky to be able to do that most of the hours of the day for the last 25 years or so. And I do know that some people's mental health is going down, especially now in the time of COVID. I know some people are nervous, nervous about getting COVID, nervous about going out, nervous about their interactions with others. I know some families are in disagreement with each other about being vaccinated and what's a good way for us to be together or not together. Should we get the booster or not? And so I think that's causing some tension and some stress. And it's also a hard time of the year. It's dark and cold. For some of us, that's really tough. And of course, life continues to happen. Definitely, there are ins and outs to life. Sometimes we get heartbroken in the of things because some of our family members they get sick, or they pass away, or things happen that are not in our control. And I always remind people it's a good day for healing. That we can go back to basics in trying to heal and be well, even if our mind or our spirit is not feeling strong as usual. That we need to get enough sleep. We need to eat as good as we can. It's hard to feel good without getting exercise or some good physical activity. We need to be careful about how we use tobacco and alcohol, not being judgmental. Some of us use to try and cope, but sometimes it has a downside to it, and we need to watch our weight, and we need to be careful about what we think. I always remember that from home. Don't always think bad things. Don't grabby. I find having quiet time is really important for me to keep peace in my mind and my feeling. And I know that there are things that make each of us individually happy. Maybe it's eating, maybe it's kicking a soccer ball. For me, I like to act, so I have like auditions and scene studies that I like to do. It's way better than doing something bad to try and pass the time. It's really something weird and fun just for me. And I'm at the moment I'm learning to try and paint. I'm a terrible painter, but for me it's fun. Just looking after your mind and body and spirit. And one other thing I'm still learning to do, and maybe our elder has a comment, or maybe others, I'm learning to actively put aside my worries. And as a doctor, sometimes I see lots of really painful things, painful cases, where people have a hard time. And I'm with them, and I do that day after day. So I do have to try and think about other things and stay well inside myself. And so there are resiliencies or coping that I heard about when I was young. My dad would say, at some point in your life you're going to be hungry. At some point in your life you're going to be in pain. You're going to be, you're not always going to be or things aren't always going to be at their best, and so you must be strong. So I have to remember to be strong, and I have to remember things like to have gratitude. Like even if I'm helping someone, uh, have a hard time. I still myself have good health, or I have loved ones and family. I have things like a nice dinner tonight to look forward to, or a place to sit and sky or look at a fire. And one thing my mom taught me was to pray. She said she was praying for me, and when I have a hard time and I hear her voice saying, "I'm praying for you," it really is a comfort. Like, it makes me feel strong inside again, because I know I'm strong inside sometimes. So I just have to remember those things, and I don't know what that kind of thinking is, that kind of self-talk. I just know that I learned it from my elders, and it's hard to describe to others, but it's really important for us to go there, because we can cope with the things that happen. I've seen people cope with really difficult things, and much more difficult than what I'm facing now, and they get through it. We get through it. So I don't have to be sad right now. I can make myself feel better. So I'm going to stop there because the dogs are really going bonkers. and we'll come back. We'll talk more.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for those opening remarks that you had there. I also want to thank you for all the work that you do. And I'm really fascinated that I get to talk to you today about this subject, because there's definitely more nuances I want to hear about the things that you do. So thank you for that, Dr. Adams. At this time, I will ask Kyron Potts to just talk about the things that you do and any opening remarks you would like to say today on Bell Let's Talk Day.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Well, tanse wagamaganak, ogiziku kanamiutut nimioen, amiskoti waskaika no chehnia. Hello, everybody. My name is Kyron Potts. Hope you're having a good day. My family is from the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation, as well as Paul First Nation, and I also have family down in Morley. So I come as I identify as a Winkte, Two-Spirit Nakota person, but I acknowledge that I have a lot of my family members that are Cree, and so I grew up Cree, and I love speaking the language as much as I can when I get the opportunity to. And sometimes when I don't get the opportunity to, I create opportunities to, and I just say what I know and what feels right. And that's a big part of why I'm so grateful and blessed to be asked to come in and share some words and speak in this program today with you, Loa, and also with Pam, who just kind of warmed my heart this morning listening to them speak the language and pray. And I think that when we talk about mental health and Bell, let's talk our languages. Like, let's talk with the spirit in our language. And so hearing Pam praying for us and me being able to understand like 60% of it is really, that is such a mental health boost in itself, because not only do I feel connected to who I am as a Nakota person, or even somebody who's learning Cree, I feel connected to my indigeneity, and I also feel connected to people like Pam who have gone through gone through a lot, and who also have just lifetimes more experience, who I know are looking out for us and who are praying for us, and those prayers matter, and those prayers keep us strong. So I just want to say Nanaskamo, and thank you so much, Pam, for your words, and also excited to be here alongside Dr. Evan Adams, who is just a cult classic icon, just a diva, just totally a huge I'm a huge fan is what I want to say. He knows that. We've had some good laughs together, and he just constantly encourages me. And I kind of was like bragging last time I got to hang out with Dr. Evan Adams that I was like, oh my God, I have his phone number. I can text him. Like, this is Thomas from Smoke Signals. Like, I was really just like fangirling to the max. And that laughter that ensued when we got to hang out was really just like, you almost can't put it into words. But if I were to try to put it into words, it's like it's just like this echoing laughter in my heart and in my spirit. And when you're laughing like that, and and you're enjoying yourself and you're living in the moment, I truly think that that is life. That's what life is. Life is not struggling. Life is not trying to be resilient and get through things. Life is definitely about waking up and smiling and looking forward to things, spending time with loved ones, hugs, laughter, smile. My cheekbones being sore and hurting from laughing so much, that's truly what I think is love and is life. And so for Bell Let's Talk Day, I really want to reiterate that and say a big thank you to Dr. Evan Adams for bringing a lot of laughter into my life and keeping me and reminding me that things don't always have to be so serious. Like Dr. Evan Adams deals with a lot of, as he said earlier, a lot of hard things probably, and has seen some things that can be really traumatic, and learning how to compartmentalize those and kind of check it at the door is a great skill. It's a really great skill, and for him to do that, but then to also bring so much joy into the world and laughter and warmth and that gentle spirit is truly what I believe the job of a two-spirit person, to kind of go between those worlds and to bridge the hard things with the soft things and to keep them in harmony. And that's what I love to do too with a lot of the things that I do, with my content creation, with my writing, with these characters that I do. When I go in and I do workshops and I connect with young people, I don't ever feel like I want to talk at them. It's more of it's a dialogue. It's walking beside them, because I see a lot of myself in them, and I know that they see a lot of them in me. And in that way, we're so connected. We have this sort of shared experience. And thank you to this program for allowing a young person to be a part of the conversation, because often I feel young people are left out of important conversations about mental health. And when I even say the word mental health, I sometimes get like eye rolls and like people kind of scoffing at me talking about it, because I've been told, what do you have to be stressed about? You're so young, like you haven't even experienced life. And yet these people don't understand that young Indigenous people, especially Indigenous people, our experience with mental health starts in the womb. We have what's called blood memory. We remember the struggles that our parents went through, and their parents, our grandparents, my chapan, and all the things that they had to go through. I carry that with me, and so I don't get the privilege. I don't get the privilege of walking around and not remembering what it took to get to where we are. And because of that intergenerational trauma and that intergenerational those effects walking with us, we experience a lot of adversity at a young age without even knowing it. And so when an older person looks down at me and tells me, like, what do you have to be stressed about? Well, they don't know. They don't understand it. And it's okay if they don't know. It's okay. But I know, and I know what's going to help me. And I think that just as much as we have intergenerational trauma, we also have so much intergenerational strength, intergenerational love, healing. We have a lot of culture. We have culture that has withstood so much and is so beautiful. And we have all of the tools within us and around us to heal our people. And so it starts with conversations like this, where we get to talk about that and remind ourselves about that. And so, yeah, I wanted to reiterate how awesome it is to be a young person and to be involved in this conversation. So, Ishnish, hi, thanks so much.
Ishnish, I know that word. there's a few words I know in Stoney Nakoda, a few words in Cree, and I wish I was fluent in my language, Blackfoot, but I definitely understand quite a bit of it. I want to thank you, Kyron, for being part of today. We knew we could not go and have a conversation today without having that youth voice. One of the things I'll say, my grandfather, Joe Croshu Sr., growing up with him, he always used to state how important that youth voice was at the table and how important that was at ceremony. And, being thrown into different scenarios at a young age, our youth in his home were always there, and they're a very vital part. And at a young age, I used to think, how are we? How are we? Because I feel that as well from being outside, that the youth voice oftentimes was forgotten. So thank you so much for accepting today's offer. You were definitely a dream when we were booking, all three of you, and our dream came true. So, so I want to say that um, I'm very honored to have you and to have all of our guests, and each one of them have already shared some profound words of wisdom, and each one of them have shown what's in their hearts as well. So I do want to go to my first question that I have, and I'll go back to Dr. Evan Adams. I'll start off with our doctor here, and then I'll go to Pam, and then I'll go to the youth. And what I want to ask is, each one of you have a specific role within the community, and I see that very defined. And I also see, we have different dynamics between all of us. And each one of us has a self-care routine that we do. How do we look after ourselves? How do we make sure, because a majority of our nations, First Nations, all different ages, we know we have low mortality rates. We know we have all different kinds of aspects that we're dealing with. There's addictions, there's violence, there's all kinds of things going on. And in our communities, it's the strong ones, like yourselves, that the community really leans on. So, in your own way, can you let me know what you would do for self-care, and how does your self-care look in your life? So I'll go to Dr. Adams.
Great. What a wonderful question, and what a great conversation. I'm learning so much, and of course, that's when you know it's a really good conversation. And my point of view is very particular. I'm a little bit older. I have adult and teenage children, and I work as a doctor. I often see people when they're having a really hard time, and it's different than when I was young, for sure. And thank you, Kyron, for the reminder around laughter, because it really is true. Like, one of the elders I love the most, who's gone now, and that that can be painful to think of her not being with me anymore. I remember her dancing, and that's how I remember her, laughing and dancing. And I think that's how I want to be remembered. I had fun in my life, not that I was serious. But my work is pretty serious. It doesn't mean that I can't laugh, but my work's serious, looking after people, helping people when they're having a really difficult time. And I do call upon my teachings, which ask us to be strong. When you're hungry, don't be crying around, like, somebody do something, I'm hungry. To be a strong person, either to bear that hunger or to dig in and say, okay, I'll just take care of it. I'll take care of it because I'm able to. And part of it is keeping my balance. We want to be many things. I don't want to just be a good doctor. I also want to be a good dad and a good husband, and I want to be a nice person, not mean, not terrible to other people. And so I have to remember my other jobs. And in COVID, I really sacrificed my physical health, spending so much time trying to help others. And I realized, gosh, you haven't seen your mom and dad, you haven't seen your kids. You're always unhappy, and you're gaining weight, and you can't sleep, or you're sleeping too much, and you have to, get back to the other things, the other parts of yourself. So I'm always thinking about them. The part of me that's campy and fun, or the part of me that likes to go for a run and look at the sky and my beautiful territory, or parts of me that are creative. It's hard for me to admit that I'm creative, but I guess I have been an actor for a long time, almost 35 years. So I guess I'm allowed to say I'm creative, and I like to do that kind of stuff. And I do need to connect with people. I'm a bit of a softie that way. So again, these are like all admissions of these other sides of myself that I have to accept them and say, yeah, I need to see my sister. I miss her so much, and I'll just be a big softie, and I need to go and sit down with her. Yeah, so those are just I think some of the things that happen in my mind, besides some of the other things that I talked about as far as coping behaviors. Taking time to just get back to basics of healing, of eating and sleeping, and all of that stuff. Thanks.
Nice. Thank you so much, Dr. Adams. You were talking about your dogs earlier. I think as well, you need to include your animals bring definitely something to, and I think they want to be on camera as well.
Kyron, when you were calling me out and you were talking about me, I was wiping up puppy pee, and I was just laughing. My life's not very glamorous at the moment.
Thank you again for sharing. So I'll go to Elder Pam, and I want to say thank you again for starting us off today and able to join us. And the question again is, what does self-care look like in your life? What are the things that you do to keep providing for yourself, your family, and community?
I think for me, it's that what gives us strength is our our human kindness, our valuing our life. And Alan Pard, um, when he was working with parole and all of that sort of stuff, he said, it's easy to treat ourselves bad when we've been treated bad for a really long time, talking about residential school and, being penalized, ending up in a penal institution and whatever. He said, we no more value our lives when we don't treat our lives as being sacred. And it's true because, right from when we were small children, our parents or our grandparents told us that our lives are sacred, and that life is a gift. And when we talk about how to practice that self-care, what do I do that nurtures my spirit, and being stronger than the people that we serve. And Dr. Adams made a comment about putting aside our worries and staying well. Um, you know, it always goes back to our culture, and in everyone's culture, we have um, stories and rites of passage. And all of these things are a birthright for us to come to know. But because of the interruptions of residential school, child welfare, banning of culture, all of a lot of those things didn't happen. And one of our elders who is no longer here, Frank, always used to tell us, you're always in the middle of 5 generations. You have your parents and your grandparents, your children and your grandchildren. Even if we're not with our parents, we're with people from their age group, or our grandparents, people from their age group. But that's what is our immediate life experience. That is our immediate memory. And so, you know, being raised in with traditional knowledge, then I came to learn in later life, the sacred knowledge of what gives us ceremony and all of that are responsibilities. Um, the we get our strength from that, finding out our stories. And one of our other elders, Adam, used to say, when a child um, values his life, a child um, when a child learns culture, and when a child learns about the people that he's with, the people in his family, knows about his history, and knows about the land and the landscape. When a child knows how to speak his language, a child will always value his life. A child will always know where he belongs, and a child will always have purpose. This child will always know what is expected of him. And this child will always know the people he's with and born into. He'll live like them, speak like them, he'll do everything like them because he'll be a part of them. And we always encourage them to make and have a good life and celebrate that life. You know, our and because of those interruptions, as some of us as grown-ups didn't learn our stories until much later, when we became adults. You know, my husband and I have been together for 48 years. We're the first generation of parents who didn't have to surrender our children to child welfare or a boarding school or whatever it was. We had the privilege of being at home and raising our children. And you know, in part of our prayer, it's always awasak oskayak otenigan kakeke wasiak tahkap muhtits, where there'll always be light and there won't be struggle for in the road that they walk. And in the future they'll be healthier adults, that they'll have good goodwill and good health, and that they always know where they belong, you know, witai sinima. But you know, the stories, we believe we are star people. We believe that, you know, our stories of origin, and how the Star Woman brought Earth to the ball of water of what became, you know, the land that we walk on. You know, knowing our stories of origin, and you know, knowing our names, and you know, definitely what is our identity? How do we account for who we are as human beings? And you know, when we were little kids, and I remember this one lady, she always used to come and visit my parents from Saddle Lake, and her name was Rosanna. And she'd always have the same question, even though she knew who we were. She'd say, "Oh, Inakia, who are you?" And it wasn't, she didn't want our street address or our name. You had to know, you had to say, you know, my name is, I'm Sapwastewiag, and that was my nickname when I was a child. And my mom is, my dad is, my Muslim is, my kokam is, and I'm from Musqueam, or I'm from Niasquia, where I live at Ermineskin. So, you know, that's that's what, um, how you identified yourself. So it was very, very important, you know, and we'd say these in our language. And I remember when I was a kid, we my brother and I were walking into the house, and it was always same old, same old. Like my mom would be in the kitchen, she'd, you know, be starting supper, and it'd be after 4 o'clock, and my dad would be reading his Edmonton Journal. And we were speaking English, and our first language was Cree, and we were speaking English, uh, and my dad threw the paper away, and this Edmonton Journal went flying all over. And he ran to my mom and he said, oh lady, I think they sent us the wrong kids." He said, "The kids we sent to school this morning, they're Cree. These kids don't speak Cree." And it was kind of like the cue, you know, like, okay, we, you know,
Yeah.
and in the mornings you're Nehiwak, and you're that all day long, and those things will never change. So it's embracing that and living within that, and but being nourished with that, our language, our stories, our heritage, our families, our heroes, our, the land that we're raised on. And that landscape has names, and the stories live within that land. So, when we talk about self care, we're not tree huggers or, environmentalists or whatever we Hollywood thinks we are. But, it's always putting our offerings. And I like to go to Waterton, and I like to pray, you know, not just at, when there's ceremonies going on, but, praying out there too matters, because that's the land that we walk on.
Thank you. I want to thank you for sharing that. And I want to say live on Facebook, there's Lisa. She shared while you were speaking, she said, my grandfather denied our family and our history. It wasn't until he passed on to the spirit world that we reconnected with our ancestors. I am grateful for discovering my story so I can pass it on to my children. So I want to say that it is a big part of who we are, is connecting with our identity. And, you have colonization and the government that tried to strip us of that. And part of a lot of our pain comes from that identity and reconnecting with it. So, thank you very much for sharing, getting reconnected with the land, getting reconnected with prayers of who we are, and sharing that little story, about the kitchen there, and your family was remembering that, and connecting to that. So thank you very much, Elder Pam, and we'll come back to you. I want to go to Kyron Potts, and Kyron, I'll ask you that same question. What does self-care look like in your life?
What does self-care look like in my life? I think that self-care is kind of overrated a little bit. It's kind of like the self-care that we know as as young people is glamorized, and it's commodified, and it's trendy to be somebody who advocates for self-care. When you look online, you see people doing self-care like, it's it's them getting a really expensive latte and then taking a photo of it and saying like self-care day. But it's actually not self-care. It's actually the opposite of self-care, because literally the word self-care is taking care of yourself. Who are you taking care of if you need to prove it to everybody that you're doing that to yourself? You're doing it for them. You're not doing it for you. And so I really want to let everyone know that that's this kind of skewed thinking that we have about self-care, is that it's these mental health walks. And sometimes it is, like, walking is amazing, but we're always doing it for the wrong reasons. And in that sense, we really lose the spirit of what self-care is. And if I could, I'd like to take it back a little bit and share a tiny anecdote about a time when I moved to Toronto by myself. I took off I lived in Edmonton for 27 years, and I ended up just moving away. And I packed all of my belongings into my niece's vehicle, and we drove across the country from Edmonton all the way to Toronto. And I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I gotten laid off from COVID. I went through a really tough split with my partner, and I was just kind of down and out and thought of giving up and not sure what my next move was. And so I went across the country, and I remember thinking, I'll just figure it out. I don't know what's going to happen. I'll just figure it out. And I had $500 to my name, and I went across the country, and I slept on my friend's couch. And I started getting anxiety about, did I make the right choice? What's in store for me? I don't trust my abilities. Like, what if things go wrong? What if I have to go back home? What if going back home makes me look like a failure? Will my dreams come true? Are my dreams even valid? All of these things going through my mind. And I was just feeling kind of hopeless. And I went for my little mental health walk. And during the walk, I experienced this feeling of like the world being pulled from under my feet, like things were out of my control, like I was just some little branch in this massive river, and I was being pushed along against my will, and I was kind of at the mercy of the waves. That's really how it felt, and I was like spiraling. And I called a helpline, and I want to be really transparent and open about this because I don't know if I've heard people actively admit, especially young people, like I really needed help. I needed help in that exact moment, and I didn't need help from a friend. I didn't need help from, you know, someone who was around me. I needed help from a professional. I needed help from somebody who was equipped to deal with what I was going through, somebody who was non-judgmental, somebody who could give me advice that they didn't have any interest in. They didn't have any vested interest in it. They could give me advice on how to make decisions that would not affect them, and therefore their advice and their help, their guidance would be completely just to help me for my own benefit and nothing to gain from them. And we often surround ourselves with people who can't do that for us. And so when we turn to them, we're getting sort of a jaded view of sometimes of what their guidance can be. And so I called what's called the Hope for Wellness line, which is it's a 24/7 free confidential telephone number that you can call if you're an Indigenous person in Canada, or in what's known as Canada. And you call them, and they do a really quick, what's your name, what's going on, and they hook you up immediately with a healthcare professional. And in my case, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just really lost. I just need someone to talk to. And they hooked me up with an elder Indigenous woman, with an elder, and she was very sweet, and she was very soft spoken. And even just hearing her voice, how she kind of talked real, like just slow and like kind of like that. And hearing that just reminded me of like family members that I have, and like elders in my community. And it was very calming immediately. And so I'm telling her all these things that are happening. I'm just kind of spouting them off, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with this, and I feel sad about this, and I'm unsure about this, and I don't like, this is bothering me. And she was kind of like, okay. And then she just kind of slowed it all down, and she was like, well, let me ask you one question. Have you drank a bottle of water today? And I was like, well, no, I had a Slurpee earlier. And she goes, Ash, like that. And I remember her saying, well, there's your first problem. She goes, did you eat? And I said, no, not since last night. And it was already 2 p.m. and I hadn't eaten. And she goes, you must be tired, hey, all that energy going through. I said, yeah, I'm exhausted. She goes, okay, well, what I want you to do is I want you to make yourself some food. Go and drink a nice big glass of water, and then go lay down. You take a nap, my boy. And so I did that. I went home. I took a nap. I ate something. I had Subway, nice little sub, and I drank my bottle of water. And this whole time I'm thinking like, this isn't gonna do anything, or like this is, I was wasting my time. And then it actually really ended up helping. And I think her teaching and her Indigenous knowledge around mental health was so simple and yet so effective, because often a lot of what's happening in our mental state is caused by these little things that we overlook. We're so focused on getting that latte and making that perfect Instagram photo, when really we could substitute that latte for a nice glass of water. Water is healing, Nipi. It nourishes us. It keeps us alive. We were born from water. And we're always taught that water is this giver of life. And so when you feel like in those moments you don't have that life, or that life is waning, replenish yourself. Allow yourself to drink that water. And there's an acronym, HALT, HALT. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Make sure that you nourish your body. You have to really take care of yourself at a very basic level. Get good sleep, eat something healthy, go for a walk, get your bones going, get your blood pumping, drink that water. Your body is the temple. Creator gave you every single thing that you need to take care of yourself. So you should be taking care of yourself so it can take care of you. When you cut yourself, your wounds close and they scar and they become stronger. Your body is fighting every day to keep you alive. When you break a bone, your bone mends itself and it hardens and your bones become stronger. So too can your heart. When you're feeling low and you're going through all of that, your body is crying out for you and it heals you as long as you take care of it. So you owe it to yourself to manage those basic necessities and bring yourself back to those basic teachings that we have about nourishing your mind, your body, your spirit. And once you do that, you'll start to realize it sometimes can be that simple. Life will flow into harmony. Things will make a lot more sense. You'll have more energy. You'll have more gas in the tank to take on the world. Things won't seem so unsurmountable, like you can't get through them. So yes, self-care can be, going for your mental health walk and posting it on Instagram or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it's really about, eating a healthy meal, get some exercise, go for a walk, drink some water, get some good sleep, maybe have a nice cup of tea, get some red rose with your kukum, sit in the sunlight, take a nice shower or a bath, practice slowing yourself down, take a break, read, listen to music, listen to a podcast, reflect on some of the things that you're grateful for, unplug yourself. Those are things that I do in my life that keep me grounded, that keep me looking after myself. This morning I went for a nice jog on the beach. I'm in Portland right now. I'm in Oregon, in Gold Beach. And my friend and I went for a nice walk early this morning with the waves crashing and the tide coming at us. And it really put things into perspective for me. It's like we're so small and yet we're all connected. And the more that you recognize how important this vessel that keeps your spirit inside of it is trying to keep you alive. It's a team effort. I always say you and your body are one, and you owe it to yourself to be your best friend and to keep your vessel safe so that it can do its job and protect you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's a lot that you said there. And the one thing I want to say is I do hope that my son is listening. And a lot of times our youth in social media, to hear you say you do need to unplug is something that's really important for our youth to hear. And the other part that I really like that you said is there's certain images and certain things that are out there that people buy into, and it's not necessarily what they think it is. So they're trying to attain something, or they're trying to look at something that's not necessarily real. And so, the unplugging, the getting back to the land, it's great to hear that you went for a walk and to describe the water and stuff. It is really powerful to hear your words today coming from a youth perspective and reminders. And I will say, and I keep saying the things that you're saying are very wise. So thank you for bringing that perspective. I want to go back to when we talk about Bell Let's Talk Day, especially with us Indigenous people across Canada and, in all of our communities, especially growing up in the two communities that I grew up in the Blackfoot Confederacy, there was definitely a stigma and a shame that came with reaching out. And there was a shame of a lot of the things that we go through. We don't necessarily want to reach out, or we don't want to state that there are some problems that we're dealing with. Can I actually ask each of you, what could we do to overcome the shame to reach out? And I know I just heard a great story from Kyron there, when he picked up the phone and called someone. So a little bit about the shame and maybe growing up and how that's actually transcended over the years. So I will go back to Dr. Adams, if I can go to you for that question. And then we'll go to and the elder.
This is such a great conversation. I really am learning a lot, and I know from speaking to many people in crisis, uh, they often say to me, "I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do what you're saying." So, for instance, something like, your loved one's sick, and they can hear you. You can go and you can speak to them, and they say, I can't do that. I can't. I don't have that strength." And I say, well, it's not strength. It's your job. It's you're going to walk with them for like just a few minutes. Just I'm telling you, you can do it. So go and do it. And so this overcoming shame because your mental health is not its best. I just know it's my job that I need to be stronger than others around me. Like, I know I'm not well in my mind, and it actually doesn't matter what those other people are saying about me. What's important is what I think and what I'm going to do. I'm going to do my job, which is to look after my heart and mind. And I know this sounds a little bit cheesy, but as an actor, we have to do that all the time. Our work is, go in there and do it with no anger. Go in there and do it with all the love in your heart, and do a scene. And I say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, and I just go and do it. So when I have a hard time, I really just say to myself, just go and go in there with no shame. You have to look after your mind, or you're going to break. And I say to myself, yes, sir, I can do that. I can do that 100 times today if I have to, because I guess I have knowledge. I know in my heart I can do it without shame. It's kind of related to, I guess, how we each grow up. My dad told me not to be governed by others. Don't be weak that way. Be strong in yourself. And his grandmother, who raised him, was very crabby that way. She would say, "Don't be a weak person. Don't be swayed by that person over there talking about you, and you don't even care about them, and they don't care about you. You take care of yourself." And I guess that's just our way, and I always hear his voice, and I hope for others that that voice is inside them too, reminding them, don't be ashamed. It doesn't help you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will go to our elder, I believe I had said, Elder Pam. I will go to, and I wanted to talk, again, the question is regarding shame. We tend to feel shame in our communities and shame in reaching out. How do we overcome this?
I think part of it is understanding, that uh, part of emotional abuse and maltreatment is that concerted attack on our self and social competence, our health and well-being. And when those attacks are relentless, it's really easy for us to kind of sit under that umbrella of shame because I'm not worth, my self-worth is at at zero. And you know we need to look at the good in our lives, that our life is a gift, and that the honor of accepting the goodness of our people, the greatness of our cultures, our languages, our stories, that all of that gives us strength, all of that, that pride. um, we encourage our children. Our children are the best at, you tell a child something and they're on a mission from God. You know, I was telling Martin a story about a little boy that asked, why do we need to keep this paint on till morning? We had gone to an all-night smoke. And what the elder had told me was that until morning you keep the paint on. So in the morning when you go out and Natosi sees you, the Creator sees you, he'll be very proud and very happy that, oh, my grandchild just went to a ceremony, and you know, I'm so happy that that my grandchild did this. And you know, that sense of belonging, and that you know, that promise that my life is good, my worth, you know, about, you know, my being involved in my culture, with my people, with my language. It's very important for us to learn that there's so much pride, there's so much strength, that all of those little things that people criticize us for or insult us about, those will, they'll be not important to us. We give a little of our strength away each time when we allow those things to hurt us. You know, one of the things that this uh, other elder was just talking to me about, you know, in our language, how do we say resilience, or how do we say to care for, to always treat our, you know, treat each other well, to, you know, it's not just sagihtun, to, you know, to embrace each other, to hold each other, but to sitoskatamoin, you know, to support and to give rise to that, you know, to that importance, that you're my people, and you know, showing that caring and that kindness, and always you know, our kids deserve, our youth are very good people. And I'm so honored, this Kyron, I'm so happy that he's, you know, thrill of your life, good for you. You know, I think, you know, youth in this day have a lot greater opportunities and celebration and goodness to look forward to. That this doom and gloom of carrying on these, you know, we've dragged this this sense of grief and loss for a really long time because of Indian agents or RCMP or being under surveillance or whatever. But our, it's the beauty and the strength of our cultures is what gave us the power to move forward. And this boy, Kyron, I'm so glad to say, I mean, you're celebrating that youth, and for certain you absolutely know who you are in your heart, and you know, don't ever let anyone tell you different, because you know, being Nehioak is the best life that we have. And you know, we are truly blessed to have been born into these Nehioak Nitsitapi, because you know, nowhere else in the world are you going to find the beauty of this culture, this language, this you know, this security of being, that our lives are sacred, you know, and how we value that. I think, you know, no matter whatever anybody else thinks of us, that shame. And I think I'm so glad that Kyron had sense enough to call somebody for help, because a lot of times we don't, it never used to be until about 30 years ago. And like, I'm really old, I can tell you that these services were not available, much less to Indigenous people, you know, where counselors are paid to be objective, They're not emotionally involved with you. If my child came to me with some hardship or some grief that they couldn't figure out, of course I'm going to be mad, but I'm going to be the worst one to, to protect my child. But what will my child learn about how surviving struggle and knowing what to do? And counselors are paid to be objective. They help you see the bigger picture. And it doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you don't belong or that you're not worth helping. It just means you need help, and it's okay to ask for help. And, we can't do everything. We can't know everything. And it's hard enough growing up, much less encountering struggles that are really somebody else's struggles when it comes to racism and discrimination and whatever hardship. But true struggles, like, yeah, we're going to struggle financially, we're going to struggle you know keeping home in place and career and jobs and whatever. But the the hardships to our hearts, to our minds, and we can't always know what to do, and it's okay to ask for help. That we are worth saving, that we are worth that help, and the honor is in keeping our lives together so that we can move forward.
Very much so. Thank you very much. I really also thank you for your words of encouragement to our youth panelists.
Mhm.
And I think we're all just admiring Kyron today. I want to ask Kyron the same question, especially from the youth perspective. It's so extremely important. There is shame there. You talked about some of that to yourself and some of the experience you've had in overcoming that. Can you talk about how do you feel about the shame and how do we overcome that? And from a youth perspective, what are the words of wisdom that you can tell those that are listening today?
Before I say anything, I have to say hi. Thank you so much to Pam for her kind words. I just feel like just real loved, holy. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think the speaking for myself personally first, I would say a lot of my shame around accessing any type of mental health support or reaching out for any type of help really comes from, I think, a combination of two things. One thing is this idea, this really toxic sort of colonial idea that Indigenous men are warriors, they're stoic, they're strong, they shed that one little single tear and that's it, and like they're always tough and they don't say any words. They're very brave without, you know, having even a crack in the armor. And I think growing up around that sort of level of toxic masculinity, we'll call it what it is, growing up with this bravado and this expectation of Indigenous men that you are a warrior, you're a hunter, you rub some dirt in it and you keep going when things get rough, or you have to be strong because you're a pillar so that those under you can be weak. And this is such a twisted way of how we're raising our children, and it does not belong to us. Toxic masculinity does not belong to Indigenous communities. It does not. There's no place for it. There's no place for homophobia, transphobia, anything like that. We're a lot better than that. We're a lot more advanced than that. And so it was a bit of me just like not thinking, or it was the shame of thinking that I wouldn't be a real man. Which is that's a common story that happens even for non-Indigenous people. This social construct of masculinity and not showing emotions or not asking for help or not being weak, or mental health means mental illness is because you have a weak mind. So there's a bit of that, and then a bit of it too is growing up as a first generation survivor of the Indian residential school. I spent a lot of time with my mom, who was quite sick for many years, and I did everything for her. I was her nurse, basically. I was her best friend and her nurse and her son. And I would push her around in her wheelchair and, give her massages and help her with her amputated leg and give her her insulin, take her blood sugars and have her pills ready, cook her food, everything. And while I was doing all of this, she would regale me with tales about the residential school system and, Sister Alphonse. And they actually went to the Muscatese residential school system. And so she went through a lot, and she didn't have the opportunities that I have to seek help, to reach out. She didn't have that luxury. And it's so sad to say that it's a luxury to be able to reach out when you're sad, when you're a kid and you're feeling lonely or you're feeling anxious. You don't have anybody around you to comfort you. That does a lot to a person. Pain changes people. And so growing up with my mom, just barely feeling like comfortable enough with me to even tell me about things like that. Like I was helping her. And so in a way, like the roles were almost reversed, where she was coming to me instead of me going to her for her troubles. And I quickly realized that this shame around getting help, this shame around talking about my feelings, this shame around admitting when I'm scared or I'm worried or I need help, that didn't belong to me, and I don't need to own that. That was put on me almost, and it does not belong to me. It was something out of my control, and that's a legacy of these schools. It's a legacy of the 60s scoop. It's a legacy of these colonial systems that have their tendrils rooted so deep within our communities. And the quicker that we realize that and we shed light on it, that's when we're going to be able to move forward. Shame is a lot of the main pillars of shame come from secrecy. That's where shame derives its power from, is from it being such a secret. It's deep down there. And so if we open up that space and shine that light on it, even just that alone takes so much power out of that shame. And you recognize that awareness, and that critical awareness, and knowing that that's there is half the battle. And only then are you able to open yourself up to start actually seeking help, talking about, having a little bit of compassion for yourself. Whenever I'm feeling those intense feelings of shame, I have to remind myself, like, what would I tell my younger sister? What would I tell my brother? What would I tell my nieces and nephews if they came to me with that shame and that guilt and that hurt? I wouldn't treat them the way I'm treating my own self. So why do I treat myself that way? Why am I doing that to myself? I try to talk to myself as if I'm talking to somebody that I love, because I love myself deeply. I love myself and I respect myself, and I deserve to love myself. So I need to be talking to myself the way that I would talk to anybody that I love. And that's, you are important. You are special. You deserve to be heard. There's space here. You're allowed to ask for help. You don't need to be 100% strong 100% of the time. And if you cry, if you falter, that does not mean that you are strong. That is a normal part of life. That's the ebb and flow of the waters. And I'll even take it a step further and say, like you don't need to apologize for those ebbs and those flows and falling down and getting hurt. You don't need to feel shame for the dark parts of your life that you've had to go through. Never apologize for what you needed to do in order to get yourself through a situation. The ocean does not apologize for how deep it is, even though a lot of people are scared of it. The mountains can't apologize for how much space they take up. They just simply are. And that's how we are. We are just people, and feelings deserve to be felt and you deserve not to be shamed for it, and reach out for help and support. And I do all the time. I shamelessly access all of the supports that are offered to me because my relatives weren't able to. My mom wasn't able to. They didn't exist back then. And they exist now. And there's so much help there. And these young people need to know that it's there and it's free. You never in so-called Canada have to pay out of your own pocket to receive mental health support. And if you feel like you do, call me and I will help you get that support that you need. There's so much out there, and I really try my best to be a hub for young people who may not even know that some of these systems exist. And so to them, I just say like it takes a village to raise a person. As Indigenous people, we are community based. We support each other when we're down. And so when you feel alone and you feel like you're scared or you have that shame, you recognize that you look to your left and your right and you see who's standing with you. And if you don't see anybody, feel it. Feel the power of your ancestors behind you. Thousands, millions of them walking behind you. They endured everything to get to this point where you're standing. And you have all of them behind you and they are cheering you on. And you carry that blood within you and that power. So
Thank
remember that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What we're going to do is I'm going to just give some numbers out for people if they want to reach out for help today. And then each of our panelists, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to close off some closing remarks for today. And if I could ask our guests to also stay on the Zoom call, we will, our feed will go off online at 1:30 Mountain Time. But I would like to say at this time, if you are experiencing emotional distress and want to talk, contact the toll-free Hope for Wellness line. The number is 1-888-242-3310, or online chat they have at hopeforwellness.ca. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that number again is 1-855-242-3310. The National Indian Residential School Crisis Line, that number is 1-866-925-4419, and it's a 24-hour national crisis line for those that are affected and have gone to residential school. The number again is 1-888-925-4419. And at this time, I will go to Dr. Evan Adams for closing remarks.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, our mental health changes even just over the course of the day. Sometimes it's really great and sometimes not so great. And I think sometimes people think their mental health is, they have it or they don't. I imagine my mental health or my emotional life as my heart and mind, my spirit's on a journey, and like a wild animal out in the forest. Who knows what's going to come that day, whether it's going to be a beautiful meadow or danger or fear. Sometimes I'll be challenged and I will feel really scared or anxious and we have to know what to do when we're feeling those strong feelings. And that's to be able to say, to admit, to look inside, even if it's just saying it to yourself, I'm having a hard time. And it's very uncomfortable to be there and to think of asking for help. And we will all need help one day, no matter how strong and smart and how much experience we have. For instance, I'm thinking of times in my life where, like, I had a new baby, or I was having trouble in school, or I'm having a hard time with the jobs that were given to me. I'm having trouble completing them, and I have to ask others to help me. And now that I'm much older and I've had to help others many times, and I've been helped many times, it's completely normal. Because if you're not asking for help and you're doing everything alone, then you're often doing things without any input. And others have been there. Other people have had babies or been in trouble at school or had a hard time with their duties or felt anxious or sad or hopeless, and they can talk to you. It's really easy to stop and to listen. But it is a humility, right? It's a humbleness that we to accept, and I think that's our way that we find humility, and it's uncomfortable. And it's hard to accept because we all want to believe we're superheroes.
Oh, your mic went off there. But thank you so much, Dr. Adams. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go back to our youth, and if we can have some closing remarks.
For sure. I'll try to keep it very quick because I have a tendency to ramble. But I guess my last my last words are just, for this bell, let's talk. I encourage all youth to do that, to talk, whether it's, texting your friends, going on Discord, using Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is, or just plain old calling someone up. Don't be afraid to use your voice and to share. There's so much power within us to form community and partnerships and to foster relationships. Make sure that you're keeping people around you that are for you, that are good people, that are good medicine. Family is what you make it. Just because somebody is not related to you by blood does not mean that they can't be your family. So when you feel like you don't have anybody, remember that you choose who's going to be around you, and you make sure you have good people in your corner. Stop scrolling and just relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, hear that heartbeat that's inside of you, and recognize that that's going to keep you going, and just kind of take it easy. Ishnish.
Ishnish, thank you so much. I will now go to Elder Pam.
Good morning, welcome back. Jokes. I when we talk about the hardships that we go through, and that what we allow to hurt us, and recognizing that it does hurt us. There are things that we can do something about, and there are things that we can't do anything about, things that just are. And a lot of times I know for myself, I know what I can do, whether I want to smudge because I want to pray, or because I want to let some bad feelings go, or whatever, some stress that that's causing me a lot of grief, or whatever. I remember one of our elders that done, she said, in the future, how you take care of those, we don't bottle up and we don't hold those feelings inside. She said, you go outside and you face the east and you say out loud what it is, and you give it to the wind so that it won't hurt anyone, but that it's out of you. And sometimes we need to hear ourselves say those things out loud. We don't always know what to do, but I when I don't know what to do, when I absolutely have done whatever I can, um, I sometimes go ask another elder, or do I need to go do a specific ceremony? But I take care of those things. I take care of those stresses, those worries, those griefs, those hardships, so that I'm not carrying this burden, and that I'll be okay as long as I'm acting upon doing something, and for myself, and so that we can keep moving. Kamemok, like Blackfoot people always say, "Ikakimat." Well, what does that mean anyway? We put action to those words by doing something that will help us, and doing something within the ways of our people, what is in our culture.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank our 3 panelists for joining us today. I do know we probably got the 3 most busiest people in Canada. And we are very, very thankful for you joining us today on Bell Let's Talk. I would like to thank our panelists, especially we have the medical field, we have youth, we have elders, our elder voice today. And it has been very insightful, and it has provided some excellent tips on self-care and coping with these difficult times that we're in. I know every single family has been hit by COVID. Every single family has been hit by residential schools, by suicide. There's chronic illness that's out there. I think more than ever, Everyone needs to remember today, because I've been very heightened this month, to check in with family, to check in with your friends, to check in. We're going on 2 years in this pandemic, and it's more important than ever. So I'd like to thank all our panelists for the closing remarks. Our elder, Pam Heavyhead from the Blood Tribe, Ermineskin, for starting us off today with in a good way with a prayer. So thank you to everyone. I would also like to thank our Treaty 6, 7, and 8 steering committee that works with First Nations and Inuit Health Branch. I'd like to thank the staff at the First Nations and Inuit Health Branch. I'd also like to thank the Windspeaker Radio team for helping with today and sponsoring. Thank you.
Hi, hi.
Are we off the air?
There we go. And you are taken offline.
Oh, right on. Okay. I would like to ask Elder
Oh,
Pam.
that's right.